Michelob Ultra and Myrtle Beach wholesaler Southern Crown Partners Incorporated know our consumers enjoy relaxing days on the water with Mick Ultra's crisp and refreshing taste in hand. It's important to remember to drink and boat responsibly. Choose to be or to designate a sober skipper before leaving the dock. Do it for your family and friends, your passengers, and everyone else on board. Michelob Ultra salutes all sober skippers who take the pledge. Cheers, and we'll see you on the water.
In Myrtle Beach, you always go at your own pace. Lie out on the sand, lie out by the pool, go boogie boarding, go surfing, walk the boardwalk, walk the marsh walk, golf at one of 90 golf courses, mini golf at one of 50 mini golf courses, fish off a pier, fish from a chartered boat, go shopping, get drinks, eat the freshest seafood. The list is exhaustive, but the experience isn't. You can go all out or do nothing at all. How you relax is up to you. There is so much to do and explore, whether you're traveling with friends, family, or just yourself. With 60 miles of beach, you're going to find your place. If this sounds like what you need, then this is where you belong.
Trilogy Outdoors.
All right, folks, welcome back to Trilogy Outdoors Podcast, and it is my pleasure to be hosting the podcast in the Pond Road Storage Studio today. We are hanging out over here at Pond Road Storage on a cloudy and dreary Friday morning, and we have to do Mondays and Fridays are our 2 days to knock out podcasts because the one and only Senator Stephen Goldfinch is very busy in Columbia, and you guys have been busy. Man, y'all been dealing with all kinds of stuff. But I've got Senator Goldfinch here. We've got Lucas Williams with us, and Tony the Bassmaster Carter is here as well. We've got Fred Rourke is in the house. We might be able to find him a mic here in just a little bit. But we're going to be joining Andrew Upshaw, my good friend from Let's Fish TV and EQ Qualifier out in the Bassmaster Opens. And I'm actually got him on the line. I'm going to go ahead and bring him in. And then, Stephen, real quick, let's talk about what's been going on in Columbia and happening up there. I know there's a lot of outdoor stuff going on, a lot with the DNR stuff.
There's a lot. So we have been debating flounder for, believe it or not, that's a hot topic of debate and what's going to happen with the flounder rules and regs. As some of you may remember, I started a flounder hatchery in South Carolina about 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
This is their third full year in the hatchery, and they intend on doing some small releases next year. They have had lots of success down there, and that I'm getting a little bit off topic, but I'm sort of proud of the success of the hatchery. We dedicated $1, I think it was $1 from the fishing license, and that hatchery is doing really well. They've been working on a lot of genetic marking. One of the most difficult things I'm told is raising flounder is keeping them, and there's a scientific term for it, and one of y'all may remember it, but basically keeping a flounder brown on top and white on the bottom.
Oh, really?
Because when they're raised in a tank, they have a tendency
to match the color, right?
Yeah, to just be white. So they need. I can't remember if they paint the bottom of the tank brown and the top of the tank white, or if it's vice versa or whatever. But they have to figure, and they can only be in that certain environment for a little while before they have to move to a different environment. So anyway, they have to move them from tank to tank to tank. So it is a little different than just raising a fin fish like a redfish.
Yeah.
Or a trout. Those are a little easier to raise in a hatchery. But according to DNR, they've got it down now. They're moving forward. They intend on doing some small releases next year, and then on year 7 is when they'll start their large releases, hundreds of thousands of fish.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So moving along very well. I'm very proud of that project. So we've been debating flounder. The flounder limits that we passed back in
2018?
No, the later ones, 2022.
Yeah.
Where we went down
2
to
years ago.
five
Yep.
fish per person. I think it was 22 when we went to 5 fish per person, 10 per boat. Those sunsetted, and we had to re-up the sunset. The legislature re-upped the sun. Well, the Senate re-upped the sunset.
Not after much debate, though. I mean, after much debate.
Yeah, it was a long debate to get that done, believe it or not.
I watched it, so.
Yeah, there's also turkeys are also on the agenda. They're being debated right now. We've been back and forth with DNR about those. I think we've got an agreement with, well, we had Jay Cantrell and Duncan Crotwell on that podcast a few weeks ago, and I think we have an agreement in place. I introduced a bill. Lucas, you'll be interested in this. I introduced a bill last week which will provide a tax credit for those people that are managing lands for turkey habitat. So
Perfect. Interesting.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, so DNR says, in their presentation, either the number one or number two problem with turkeys, it's not people, it's habitat and predators, right? Yep. And they always say when they're asking the hunter to take a cut, they always say, well, there's nothing we can do about habitat and there's nothing we can do about predators. All we can do is ask the hunter to take a cut. Well, let's do something about habitat if that's the problem, okay? So I've asked DNR to come up with a list of what they consider to be habitat improvements for turkeys, and it's things like, planting of chufa, burning, thinning, you name it. I mean, things that you normally do for turkey management. I've asked them to come up with a list of those things. Fire ant mitigation, there's lots of things you can do. Planting of certain trees, the mass-bearing trees that turkeys like. Lots of things you can do, and that becomes a tax credit now. You don't have to own the land. You can own the land. You can lease the land. You can just be a friend in the land. If you're spending money on what the DNR considers to be turkey management, you get a tax credit. So NWTF's now written a letter of support. Turkeys for Tomorrow's written a letter of support. DNR's written a letter of support. It tends to have a lot of support. So,
Good.
Yeah.
The individual will get a tax credit or the property owner?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, both. Whoever. So if you've got an LLC, like my land's in an LLC, for instance.
Right.
I got an LLC. It's pass through taxation, so the tax credit comes through directly to me if I'm to manage turkeys. If you own it outright with you and your spouse own it, then y'all get the tax credit. Yeah, it's written where it passes through to the however you want to own it.
That's great. Well, listen, I'll tell you what, my guest has been sitting in the left wing here. We're going to pull him into the show here, and that is the host of Let's Fish TV, the busiest man in all of outdoors television. Andrew, I think you'll agree with me on that, won't you?
I tend to be fairly busy most every day. I honestly, I was telling my wife the other day, I was like, we got 24 hours in a day, and I need about 36, and then I'd be able to keep up with everything I got going on.
Well, now this March will start my 10th year as the Carolinas reporter, and I swear I want to say this is like 28 years for the show, dating back to Barry, obviously. Is that somewhere? Is that close? I can't remember.
It's around that range. It's for what it originally was Fox Sports Outdoors. Then we changed the name to Let's Fish TV, and yeah, I've been around about 28 years or so. Well,
real quick, introduce yourself to everybody, because there might be some listeners on here that don't know who Andrew Upshaw is, and I do, because if you're on social media, if you have ever said bass fishing around your phone, Andrew will pop up from time to time with all of his live videos and everything. But real quick, introduce yourself and let's talk about how you got into this.
I'm Andrew Upshaw. I'm the owner and host of Let's Fish TV. I've been fishing professionally for about 14 years, 37 years old, and honestly, I'm just one of those guys that I just really love fishing, and I just love being outdoors, and I've kind of overwhelmed myself with the amount of time that I spend outdoors. So I just really enjoy getting to be a part of stuff like that, and I just kind of bounce around tours a little bit, but one thing's been constant, at least the last few years, is I have a pretty successful YouTube channel. It's Andrew Upshaw Fishing on YouTube, and that's actually what got me started in the media game, and so I've just kind of been going from there.
Is it a big change going from just YouTube to broadcast? Be honest.
It's a pretty massive change actually. Because partly because I have an editor for my TV show, which is one of the best editors as far as I'm concerned,
I
and
agree.
Garrett Matthews.
I agree.
He keeps me so organized and lined out. I couldn't do half of what I do without that guy. He is definitely my right hand man when it comes to basically everything TV show. But I've been shooting a bunch of shows for Barry for years
Yep.
actually. So I was guest hosting for a while, and then decided to go ahead and make the plunge and jump on into the ownership side of things, and it was the best decision I ever made.
No doubt, I agree with you. And again, 39 episodes a year. I mean, people, I talked, like I said yesterday, you and I were speaking. Talked to Mark Davis, talked to George Poveromo, and they're like, I don't know how in the world they do it. I don't know how in the world he does it. And your editing, your quality of shows. I mean, it's not like. I'm just going to say, there are a lot of outdoor shows. We all know that there are, and everybody between YouTube and Waypoint and everything else. But to be on broadcast, to have Bally's TV now, I think you're in 3 different segments, and that would be the Southwest, Southeast, and now Florida. Correct?
It's actually really unique. So we're actually Bally Southwest, Bally Southeast, Bally Sports Florida, and the Sportsman's Channel, and Waypoint TV, among other streaming services, and obviously YouTube and things like that. Uh, the unique thing that not everybody knows, and and a lot of TV people kind of look at you a little crazy when I tell you this, is almost every single show that we shoot for Let's Fish TV is shot in one day. I dare to say out of the 39, probably 33 are shot in the same day that they're shot. So
Right.
Whereas on other TV shows, it might take 2, 3, 4 days to actually get all the footage they need to actually shoot the shows, and we do it all in one.
Yep.
And that doesn't matter the time of year, where we're at, and that's always been one thing that Barry Stokes, the original owner of it, always looked at me as like, I just don't know how you do it in a day. Like, I don't know how you get it all done. And from an efficiency standpoint, I've just learned how to get everything I need in a day, and we've just made it work. So it just has worked out. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if I stayed for 2 or 3 days, you're going to see an epic show every single time, because I will eventually catch 5 or 6 monsters wherever I'm
Yep.
at. But so if you see an Let's Fish TV show and you see me catch 4 or 5 or 6 pounders in a day, I literally caught them all in one day. I never did it over a course of 3 or 4 days.
Yep. And I've done enough with Barry. I've shot enough with Barry. I've hosted enough to know that Barry. I'll say one thing about Barry. He didn't mind if he had to. And Tony's been fortunate enough to be a cameraman quite a few times with Barry. When it came to Barry, there's one thing for sure. He's going to have plenty of options before he leaves the water. I'll never forget having.
Absolutely.
I bring breakfast, lunch, and dinner when I go on the water with Barry. There's no doubt about it. And I tell you what, though, I will say the last show that I did with Barry before, this would be 2 years ago. He had already told me that, things were in the works with you and everything else, and he was here. And I took him offshore, and we went grouper fishing and inshore, kind of near shore. And poor Barry could not catch a fish. And I'll tell you what, Barry, his ego. It wore on him hard, and I had to let him beat me in golf the next day to make up for it.
Oh yeah, no,
he's competitive.
He's super competitive, and he's learning this. Don't be wrong, he knows forward facing sonar pretty well, and he's learning how to do it better. And on the bass side of things, he's done it with crappie and white bass and striper, and basically every other species out there. And he's struggling a little bit on the bass side, and I've had quite a few lengthy conversations with him as of late, training him up, trying to get him, in the right frame of mind, because it is such a different deal when on bass fishing side of things. So, I mean, I've seen the frustration build on him over the years, just in lots of different categories. But yeah, he was a phenomenal host. He definitely trained me up well. I've had a lot of really great trainers though. Scott Martin is a really good friend of mine, and he's honestly the reason that I got into TV and YouTube, for that matter. Whether he knows it or not. I just saw the pathway, and I saw what he built, and I said, you know what, I think I can build that exact same thing, or even maybe more. And that's actually what my motivation factor was, because what I realized one day, I woke up, and especially after I met him and saw just everything that he had done in this industry, and I was like, you know what, all these views and things that I'm getting on a tiny amount of posts that I'm making, and the few times that I've been on whatever TV show, like I'm giving nothing to my sponsors whatsoever, and I've got to be better. And that's, I don't know, I just kind of hit a point where I was like, you know what, I'm tired of sitting on my hands. It's time to go to work, and here we are about 4 years later. So
Yep, and doing it really, really good, my friend. And how you balance the fact that, when it comes down to those EQ Opens, let's talk about that. The Bassmaster Opens, you fished that a full schedule, correct?
I do. I fished the entire last year. I only fished 8 of the 9. I realized, honestly, the reason I fished the EQs is trying to make the elites. I mean, that, and if you're not in it for that reason, I'm not sure why you're in it, because it's not for the money aspect of things. I can tell you that.
Right.
I did the points. I calculated all the points, and I was in great shape. I think I was like 18th or something like that. And I would have had to have won the tournament, and then everybody, like 10 people ahead of me, would have had to bomb the tournament for me to make it. And I mean, you look at Bobby Lane. At that time, he was in 15th, and I think I was in 18th. And he still finished 11th and had a good tournament. And it's because all the people ahead of him didn't bomb. So it was a good reason to not go. But yes, I do. I fish all 9 opens. I have for the last 4 years. And it's a grind, because I was used to fishing about 6 or 7 events a year for the FLW tour during that time frame, and then still fishing a few Toyota series here and there. But ever since 2019, I won 2 events that year with FLW, and when they sold, I decided to move on to Bassmaster, and I haven't fished another FLW event since. Actually, the last event that I fished for FLW, I won, and I haven't fished another one since then.
Yep, and there's been so many changes in the world of tournament bass fishing, whether it is forward facing sonar, whether it is the Bass Pro Tour and its changes, and pulling so many players from Bass, and then obviously now sending so many back to Bass. It seems like a lot of people are making their way back to Bass.
Yeah, and I think you're going to start seeing it even more. I think that this was just the beginning. And I wish zero ill will towards MLF. A lot of the anglers that fish over there are really, really good friends of mine.
Right.
And I hate that our industry is in the situation that it is right now. It's actually, I would dare to say that our industry right now is in worse shape overall than it was when they all left. I mean, anytime you have an organization suffering or whatever might be going on at Major League Fishing that causes all the anglers to come back, that hurts everyone. And that's what people don't realize. It hurts the entire industry.
There's no doubt about it. And I see so much. I listen to Slick Johnson. I'm sure you know Slick. But I listen to Slick, and I listen to so many different podcasts. And to hear, the state of bass fishing right now is probably as bad and as low as it's been in a long time. And again, there's so many different factors. A mutual friend of ours, I think you were familiar with JT, and I think you had talked to him, throughout the EQ Opens and qualifiers and stuff. But JT's one that this year, when it came down to the business side of things, after he qualified, it's been a rough winter for him. I mean, it was, and I know his mom and dad listen to our podcast, so they're going to hear it. But it's been a rough winter. When I have to go help. When I have to go help him with sponsors, and I mean, we're talking about a guy who had a phenomenal. I mean, I've heard it referred to as a record-setting year, but a phenomenal year in the Open Series and qualified Angler of the Year in the EQ. And man, he's having to knock on doors and beg to get sponsorships. It's a the whole industry is just really messed up right now, I think.
Well, I'll put it in perspective for you. When I took over Let's Fish TV, we were at 8.5 million views and impressions per year.
Yeah, I think this is a big number too. Keep going. I love this.
Yeah. So I mean, we're at like 8 to 8.5 million around that. And this year, after I did my numbers and everything, we're at like 19.8 million impressions and views for the season. And I lost sponsors this year. I actually lost 3 sponsors this year. And, for me, it baffles me because we've grown the business significantly, way more than double. And when you start talking the TV aspect and the social media presence and YouTube and all these different factors, it's always baffled me whenever we lose it. I understood when I was a professional angler and I lost sponsors. I mean, budgets change, you get a different marketing director, so on and so forth. But when you're almost tripling your numbers, it's hard for me to swallow that. So I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm personally losing 3 big sponsors, and they were big ones, I lost 3 real big ones, and it wasn't anything I did. It was literally they are getting budgets slashed significantly right now.
Right.
Because all business was great during COVID, the COVID era. And then now we're coming back to the reality that there's not as many people fishing as there was during COVID. And so budgets are getting sliced, and all these professional anglers that don't have a social media presence, don't have a TV show, don't have a successful YouTube channel, because a lot of them have YouTube.
Yeah.
But they get 200 views on each video, and that doesn't do anything for anybody. I mean, I hate to say that, but like,
no, you're right.
What are you really selling with 200 views? I also know that you've got to start somewhere, and I applaud them for putting the effort in, because that's part of the whole game. Is like, you got to have the effort. And if you don't have the effort, you're wasting your time. But for me to lose 3 with almost 20 million views this year, and then for a guy like JT that is a unbelievable angler. I mean, JT is such a solid angler. I feel sorry for these guys, because it's the reality of pro fishing right now, or any type of endorsement, whether it be just for TV or podcast or anything,
Yep.
is suffering significantly. And I don't foresee it getting any better, at least until the end of this year, maybe next year. So when there's got to be some changes made. I'm not going to say anything, but there just needs to be some changes made for us to get a little bit better. I mean, interest rates are through the roof. You can't sell boats. I mean, there's a lot of factors that are truly affecting this industry.
Yep, there's no doubt about it, and I've always, Barry and I started years ago talking about this, and I would always bring it up and as I heard ICAST went from, ICAST went from your Mark Davises, your Mark Sosens, your Barry, I mean your television people walking around, to some the last couple of years it became, okay, the TV guys are okay, but it's all about the TikTok and the YouTubers. Mm-hmm. And those were the ones that the companies were more worried about. And I've heard, I'm not going to say whose name it was, but he said it. And I'll say it just like he did. He said, my audience spends money. Their audience watches for clicks. He said, and I'll argue that till my dying day. But
I agree, but I don't at the same time, because I've seen the power of YouTube, and I've seen the power of what social media does. I mean, obviously, I grew up in a different era than a lot of the other TV hosts.
Yep.
And I mean, I would dare to say that if I go get 15,000 views on a YouTube video talking about a Strike King jerkbait,
somebody's going to buy it. Yeah.
Well, not even just somebody. I mean, I get phone calls like, "Hey, did you do this video? Because we just had a spike in sales from Strike King jerkbaits at Tackle Warehouse or at Academy.com," and they're seeing significant results. Now, I'm different, and realizes there's different types of YouTubers, just like there's different type of TV hosts.
Right.
There's funny TV hosts that really aren't really trying to sell anything and don't really try to sell anything. but there's YouTubers that are working.
Uh-oh.
We got a bad connection.
I lost you there, Andrew.
The tournament
There we go. I got
aspect,
you back.
they've linked everything. And that has added significant value to sponsors. But I'm gonna tell you, as a TV person now,
Yep.
I love all the YouTubers walking around, TikTokers. That
Yep.
makes my job easier. The day that it's going to get harder is when I start seeing more TV people walking around, and I don't think that's going to happen because a lot of people don't want to take the plunge.
No, they don't want to take the plunge. They don't realize how much work it is. They don't. They think it's all glory because they see these YouTubers and TikTokers who are shooting with a GoPro and editing it on, Apple or some editing device on their phone like I do. But it's so much more work. And by the way, just so you know, you got defensive, but you're on my side of the guys who are professionals who. Yes, somebody's going to buy when you put a video up because we know you know what you're doing. But I'm talking about the woman who's cooking with her boobs hanging out, and she went and caught the fish with 3 guys on the boat who had to set the hook for her and did everything else, and then handed her the rod. She reeled it in. Those are the YouTubers that I'm talking about, not you, brother.
No, no. And I was just clarifying because as somebody that worked, because I've worked in the industry, that's what some people don't realize either. As I worked for a marketing company and worked for Strike King and Lose directly.
That's right.
For the last 12 years. And up until like 2 years ago, I stopped working for them. And I guess a year and a half ago when I took over the TV show was my last year. But I've been working in marketing and advertising for a long time and seen the trends and where we've spent money, where we haven't spent money, and why. And it's really fascinating because I remember in 2016, and I'm so mad at myself because I had the opportunity to start a YouTube channel, and we had a YouTube convention, and we brought in all these YouTubers, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why are we bringing these guys in? I thought it was the silliest thing ever, and because I never watched that. I watched Bassmaster. I read the magazines. I did the old school research. And they kind of started preaching about the power of YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And I started really seeing the light. But at that moment, it was all about how many subscribers you had.
Right.
It had nothing to do with anything else. And so if you had 1 million subscribers, it's like, oh my gosh, this guy has 1 million eyeballs on it at all times. But in reality, what are those 1 million eyeballs? Are they buyers, or are they just people?
Are they there looking? Yep.
Yeah. So that's what we started realizing, and there's definitely categories of YouTubers, and that's what makes it really fun to pay attention to, and that's what makes marketing fun is because we get to kind of judge that based off of numbers. I can judge it based off of subscribers and views and clicks and all kinds of different metrics that you can get nowadays. So it's really unique.
It is really unique, and it's a tough world. It's a tough business. And Steven's right here now. I got to tell you a funny story. No, not a funny story. It's a sad story. It was the demise of a duck, but Steven had got a video of a duck that was later diagnosed with avian flu. Mm-hmm. We shared it on our Facebook page. And it is now at 1.9 million views?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only thing we've ever had go viral. And it is a poor dead duck floundering on the ground that swam out of the pond and died right in front of him. But we got a lot of views on that thing. And we didn't even have to boost it.
No.
Well, and so that's actually very unique that you said that. And I do want to make a point to this. This kind of correlates back to what I was talking about on YouTube and views and all this kind of stuff, because let's say for instance that's your highest viewed video of all time, right? And you didn't boost, you didn't any of that stuff. But when you go to sponsors, you're gonna be like, hey, look, this year we had 5 million or 3 million views. Well, 1.9 of that came from a video that I promise you didn't sell anything off of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But the reality is, yes, you got more views and you definitely got more eyeballs. And what I started realizing, what my research started doing on the back end is okay, I'm going to start vetting these YouTubers, and I want to see, did they have one or two viral videos? What were those one or two viral videos? And without those one or two viral videos, then what were their views? And it started making way more sense, and what started saying, oh, okay, so this guy's really not worth what he's asking for, because he got 5 million views on a video where he popped a hook in his arm, or popped a hook out of his arm. What did he sell there? Like, what was the beneficial thing that he gained out of that? Whereas when I look at the rest of his videos, they're like 5,000 views a piece.
Right.
Like, yeah, he got a bunch of views on one video, but like the rest of them weren't that good. I would rather a guy that averages out 15, 20,000, 10, 15, 20,000, 30,000 views a video than somebody that's just boosting off of one. And I'm not making fun of y'all by any means, but that's a metric that I look at that isn't one that is usually tracked by most people.
Right.
Are you doing what would you say your breakdown is? Is it mostly freshwater bass fishing nowadays?
Actually, no. I mean, I was actually going through our schedule for this season of 39 episodes, and I would dare to say there might be like 14 bass shows or 15 bass shows out of 39.
What
we
are the
have
rest?
a lot of they're crappie, white bass, striper. I did a clown knife fish show this year
In Florida. That was awesome.
In Florida. Yeah, it's going to be an awesome show. We obviously do a bunch of inshore stuff, redfish, trout. Obviously Inglis is going to do a shad show this year, catching the really big shad that South Carolina is known for. So I honestly, and that's one of the big things I wanted to do, is to keep the diversity there, keep a lot of different species rolling. Obviously my background's in bass, but like, I'm going to tell you, my most viral videos are crappie videos.
Yep.
And so and using long poles and jigging around, because nobody does it anymore and people love it. I mean, like, I get hundreds of thousands of views when I post a crappie video using a long pole. It's unbelievable.
All right, I want to reserve one of your days. I want to reserve one of your days because I want to test a theory. We shot a TV show. God, when was that? Probably 15 years ago, 12 to 15 years ago. We shot a TV show, and it was all spearfishing. And it was one of the first spearfishing shows that had ever come out.
It was insane.
It was, and we never had a whole lot of traction with it from the broadcast perspective, but when it hit all the YouTube and whatnot, it had, I don't know, gobs and gobs and gobs
of views.
Yep. And my theory on this is that fishermen watch spear fishermen a lot because they want to understand what the bottom looks like. They want to understand how a fish eats, how they school over a ledge.
And most of us don't want to get out of the boat and do it ourselves.
Exactly. No, that's right. And I think there's a lot of education in watching spearfishing videos, not just for the fun of it. And everybody wants to see somebody get eaten by a shark, obviously.
Yep.
But I mean, a lot of education. And so anyway, I'd like to reserve one of your days, one of these days, to come and do a spearfishing show with us. And that may be, I don't know if you dive at all, but if you don't, we can teach you on the job. It's no big deal.
Hey.
So it's actually funny you say that. One of my cameramen in South Texas, his name's David Raymond. He is a big time diver, and he has begged me to come do a spearfishing show with him as well. And I'm all for it. I think it's the coolest thing ever. There's
too.
A couple of my buddies that spearfish, and obviously I'm not a qualified diver. I want to learn. I've always wanted to be one. I'm a big swimmer. I've always been a big swimmer, so I feel like naturally I could probably do it just fine. I know it's way more than just swimming, obviously, but I think it's really unique. Last year I actually did a bow fishing show for stingrays out of Gulf Shores, Alabama, and I think it's really awesome to branch out and do unique stuff that maybe nobody else has ever done before.
Yeah, I like that. I like your philosophy on that too. I do. I think that's what I think that's going to make the show a lot. I mean, a lot better too. But I do like that philosophy. And I'll tell you, from being the person in the boat, like even if you don't go diving with him, send the camera down. And with the video, you could go back over and voice over it. I know you'd obviously want to be down there with him, but if you didn't, it does. The video is incredible. One of our other great videos is underwater video that Steven shot with red snapper. We were basically talking about the abundance of red snapper that our fisheries has decided that we don't have enough of. Yeah. And Steven said, I mean, how do you cannot dispute video. If he's down there swimming and the red snapper are everywhere and all the other species are missing, we got a problem. Yeah. But you'd probably love diving with him. He's insane though. He's an animal. I will say that.
Oh, I'm all about it. I think it's such an awesome opportunity. I'd love to do it. I mean, like I said, I've always been that, and so when I told Barry, I said, I'm not trying to change your product. I know what's made you successful and what got you here, but at the end of the day, I have to put my twist on it, and my twist is going to be going. Obviously, we're going to fish in the south and southeast because that's where the show is. But like even last year, we shot a couple in New York, fishing Ontario. I shot one at Clear Lake, California, with Ish Monroe. I really like to branch out. I did one on the Amazon, fishing for peacock bass and every other species that was down there. So I'm all about branching out and getting a show that maybe nobody's ever done, or maybe you haven't seen in a long time, because it is captivating. It's so unique, and being able to understand what goes on underneath the water. You know, you talk about forward-facing sonar, it's kind of giving us an eyeball under the water to a certain extent, but even then we're just seeing how fish, you know, are really relating to cover, or what they do in their off time, basically. But even in that situation, we still don't it's not like a camera under the water where we put our eyes and actually see everything that is going on. So, and there's nothing better than laying your eyes on it, in my opinion.
No.
I'll give you a quick story. About 10 or so years, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, we were, actually I think Scott Cothran was with us from Freeman Boatworks. Anyway, we were fishing and diving offshore, and we were starting to work our way back inshore from the break, and we stopped on a particular spot that should have had grouper, and the guys were, and I had maybe one tank left, and the guys had dropped lines, and nobody was catching anything, and I said, well, let me go take a look. So I went maybe 60, 70 feet down just to sort of, I didn't go all the way down to the sand. I went 60, 70 feet down to sort of take a look. Visibility was good. Big school of African pompano in the mid-water column, and no amberjack, which that's a real special scenario, because you know, we shoot African pompano all the time, but you hardly ever have a chance to actually catch one, because it's very difficult to get a bait through amberjack to get to an African pompano. There's, you know, there may be 100 amberjack and there may be 5 African pompano. The chance you're going to catch one of the pompano is just slim to none. So anyway, big school of African pompano, no amberjack. I popped right back up to the top, and I said, y'all, reel your baits about 20 or 30 reels, and let's see what happens. 20 or 30 reels. You know, I came back up to the boat, got undressed. Everybody reels their squid up 20 or 30 reels to somewhere in the 50-foot range. All 4 rods bent bent right over, reeling barn doors up, and 4 big pompano, 30 to 45 pounds apiece. One of them was right at the state record. And anyway, so the point is, you know, there's a lot of opportunity to be learned from just taking a look. It's just as simple sometimes as taking a look and understanding what's going on in the water column.
Yeah, I would have to say in freshwater, Andrew, you know, that would be another perspective. Just, I mean, you know, now with forward-facing sonar, obviously things are looking different, and we've already, I mean, good Lord, if you watch any bass tournaments, all you're going to hear is water that's never been fished before. Fish have nowhere to hide, blah, blah, blah. But it would be really awesome to go down and look at areas where you find fish, and in your mind, there's a couple laydowns and maybe some riprap and everything else, but then to get down there and actually swim around it and see what you're actually looking at, instead of having to flog. I know with the smallmouth. Have you ever been flogging?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I've caught a lot of fish using a flogger up north. It's a different experience. It's not one that I'm just the most fond of, honestly, because it's so awkward. Like, you're sitting there laying on your stomach and you're trying to, and most of the time it's windy, and you've got your trolling motor spot lock because those fish aren't scared of your trolling motor. And so you're laid down, and the thing is smacking you in the face the whole time, and you're trying to hold your rod with the other hand, and
to watch, yeah.
And you're trying to find this fish on the bottom. And a lot of times, at least the ones that I always tend to find are the ones that are like 14 foot deep, and you can barely see him down there. And you're like, man, I know he's down there. I think my bait's there. And then it's like, but I don't see my bait. And it's like, oh, because he has it. And then you end up catching it. And I mean, it's just it's wild, man. Like, it's a fun way to fish. My personal opinion, like, I love to sight fish. Like, to me, I once again, you understand what's going on under the water. I love standing up, using my glasses, and just being able to physically see fish and catch them. I think that's easily my favorite thing to do anyway. So the mindset of going under the water and looking at them is even more fun, because I love understanding the habits and mannerisms of how a fish operates and what they do and why they do what they do. And that's what forward-facing sonar is exposed, is just how little we actually know about bass and what they do and how they maneuver in the water column and why they maneuver in the water column. So it's definitely opened a lot of eyes.
There's this old wreck in the Cooper River, old broken down wreck in the Cooper River. And I don't mind telling you sort of where it is, near Strawberry Landing. So, east of Tail Race and all that.
Yep.
All right. So there is.
And Andrew, that's where I'll be filming next week in where he's talking about, in the Cooper River. Yep.
A lot of gators in that part of the world too, by the way. So anyway, there's this wreck there, and it always, I found bottles on it for years and pieces of brass. And if you go off the ledge and drop down into the middle of the river, you also find shark's teeth and bones and whatnot. So anyway, I'm dropped down. There's a fisherman like 50 yards away, and I drop down on top of this little wreck. And it's a broken down wreck, but there's a little cavity that's maybe 3 feet off the ground. And I've found bottles in that cavity before, and the current will sometimes wash sand away and reveal new bottles in there. So I stuck my head in this little cavity, this little hole in this little wreck, and there was a catfish that was about as big as me. I mean, probably in legitimately, he was probably 60 pounds or so. I mean, he looked as big as me under the water, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big, big fish, and he had a hook and a line in his mouth.
Shut up! It was.
He's just sitting there in this hole in this wreck, but he had a hook, and I could see the line coming out, and I'm like, I'll be dang, that fish broke somebody off, and then I could see the line getting tight, and I'm like, holy crap! It's those people that are down there 50 yards down the street. He swam up into this hole, and he's just sitting in this hole, and I'm thinking, I want to watch this go down, like to see if they can get him out of this hole. Or if I need to reach in there and grab him out and pull him out for him. So I'm watching this whole thing, because this is a giant catfish. Like, this would make their decade, right? So I'm watching this thing, and this fish just keeps pushing back further, and, they're pulling on the line, and he's pushing back further, and they're pulling on the line. And eventually he takes a right, and he swims up farther into the wreck, and it shears the line off, and he's gone. And I came up to the top, and I said, I sort of drifted down to him, and I said, y'all, you're never going to believe
how big
that fish was. Well, we thought we were just hung on something. You were not hung on something. You were not. I'm telling you, like, his head was the size of a basketball.
Wow.
Yeah, you were hung on something, all right.
I thought he was hung on something.
Well, that forward-facing sonar is probably the biggest topic in bass fishing right now. Anybody got any forward-facing sonar questions or anything here? Lucas,
No, sir,
come
I
on.
don't.
You staying away from it?
I'm not educated enough on that topic yet to jump into discussion.
Here's my thing, okay? I watched a weigh-in of a bunch of whiners yesterday. And yes, I'm going to say it. I listened to a bunch of whiners, guys that I have idolized, just doing nothing but whining yesterday. And at the end of the day, I came from professional golf. When new drivers came out, if they were illegal, USGA made them illegal.
Right.
If they weren't, guess who was buying them? We all were buying them. When I knew I could hit it 380 with a certain driver, and I had to pay $50 extra or $80 extra or 140, I bought the driver. You know why? Because I was trying to be the best that I could be.
Right.
I don't look at it being any different. Andrew, I know you're going to argue that because I'm sure you're going to see different, but I just don't look at it being any different. I mean, if you are out there truly representing your sponsors and you say, I want to be the best that I can be, I want to beat everybody, how can you refuse to give in to fishing with something that everybody else is fishing with?
I don't think you can.
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is forward-facing sonar has changed the game significantly. The biggest change in fishing in probably the last 10 or 12 years.
Yep.
I would easily say. But to me, and I'm going to get crucified for this, to me, there's not a whole lot of difference than the age of when we started getting all the high-end mapping, the age when we got side imaging. Because I'm going to tell you, when you went to Kentucky Lake, for instance, before forward-facing sonar, when Kentucky Lake was good, or Pickwick, or Gunnersville, or Rayburn, or Toledo, any of these offshore lakes, if you went and made a cast in practice, you were going to get beat. Because what you needed to do is you needed to idle with your big motor using side imaging to find schools of fish all day long. And it was a law of averages. If I idled for 3 hours, I might find 2 schools of fish. And if you ever stopped, your average would just get decimated, because there might be an hour in there where you find 5 schools of fish. And you never knew when that hour was going to be. So, like, yeah, nobody saw it on TV and they didn't see it on live because we'd already done it in practice. But these guys literally have utilized electronics to the utmost degree for 20 years, easily 20 years. And so, yeah, the sport is continuing to evolve. I mean, are we supposed to go the round Abu Garcias now because the reels cast too far? You know, like, I mean, like, where do we draw the line? Now, I'm going to tell you, there's some new tech coming that I've already heard about that uses AI and some stuff like that, that honestly, like, I do believe we're hitting a point where we're getting too good. And just like any other professional sport, I do think there needs to be limits on what we use.
Yep.
But as of right now, there aren't any limits. So you have just as much an opportunity to get and use what I have. So everybody has the same playing field. So yeah, there was a bunch of guys complaining yesterday, but the thing that baffles me is there was a lot of guys complaining about guys using forward-facing sonar, but in reality, how would they even know that? Because I watched a lot of the live and I looked at a lot of the photo galleries, and a lot of the guys that caught big bags yesterday caught them sight fishing.
Yep.
So are we going to ban their eyeballs and ban sunglasses and ban? I mean, like, once again, where do we draw the line on what's allowed and what's not allowed? I personally think we're going to limit ourselves into a point where it's not even fun anymore. On the flip side of that, being an angler that fishes the opens and fishes other tournament trails, I start to think that maybe this tech is too powerful. And what I mean by that is it is taking away from pattern fishing and fishing in general. You know, we're celebrating now when somebody wins without using it. That shows you how good it is. But in my mindset, if you're worried about the fish and all that stuff, then why the heck did we ever ban the Alabama rig? Because we banned the Alabama rig because it quote unquote was too powerful. That's what they told me.
Right.
When I fished FLW, they're like, hey, this thing is way too good. We can't use this anymore. So you're mean to tell me that is too good, but me floating out in the middle of a pocket, catching them every time I see one, and it doesn't really happen like that. Anybody who uses forward-facing sonar religiously will tell you that they might cast at 5,000 fish and catch 50 of them.
Exactly.
But the reality is that the tech is definitely changing the game, maybe a little bit too much. Do we need 8 units on our boat? No, I think they should limit the size of graphs, the amount of graphs. They should probably limit the amount of transducers you have on your boat. But at the end of the day, the tech is here and it's not leaving. Just like you're not going to get me to get rid of my high-end lose rod reels or some of the high-end jerk baits and crankbaits and things that Strike King makes.
Yep.
No, you're not. I'm not going back to the Stone Age, so to speak.
Right.
But at the same time, I also understand that there needs to be limits, but that's for everything, though. I mean, there's limits on bass, there's limits on crappie, there's limits on literally everything in life. So I don't think it's really a bad thing to limit.
Well,
tech
is
a
it?
little bit.
Was it Todd Alton? He's a South Carolina guy, but was it one of them is using glasses that actually have the display that they see on their screen in their glasses now? I would be puking if I had to look through that, and I'd walk off the side of the boat. That's what Tony and I were talking about that. I'd fall off the side of the boat, but they're wearing glasses.
Oh, well, the thing is we laugh about it, but I do think, he's on the leading edge of something that might even be even more powerful in the future. Yes, probably the tech and the look of it right now is pretty silly, but in 10 years or 15 years, it wouldn't shock me whatsoever if we aren't all wearing glasses.
Yep.
So we're not having neck injuries and it's so integrated to where you don't fall off, like you can still see past the image or, something like that. So, they think of some of the most insane things and these anglers have adapted over time. You look at the rookie class that came in this year on the Elite Series, they're all super young, minus like one angler or two anglers. And all of them are extremely proficient with forward-facing sonar. And the normal rookie classes in the Elite Series kind of fall by the wayside. You might have a rookie or two rookies that really show out. But I want to say in the last Elite Series event that they had at Toledo, and I might be wrong here and I might get crucified for this, but I want to say 8 or 9 of the 10 that made it all were rookies. All those rookies made a top 40 or top 50 check.
Yep.
So that's unprecedented right there. But it also shows you just how good those dudes are at using forward-facing sonar. So, and especially for that being the first event was a forward-facing sonar event.
Right.
But Lake Fork is showing that it's not just that type of event either. So, which is a good thing.
Yeah, that is a good thing.
You mind if I interject?
Come on.
I got something too whenever you get done.
Well, you go first. Go ahead.
All right. I don't want to get too far off topic here. But so what we've been talking about, for people who don't know, I used to be big into racing. That's what I did growing up. Going back to everything we've been talking about today with your following that you're trying to generate on social media and where we're going with the technology of bass fishing, I'm going to compare it to where NASCAR was maybe 15 years ago. All right, we started getting away from the man who knew how to work on his car.
Yep.
The man who knew how to feel the things that he was trying to feel from his car, and got more into, they call it data acquisition, computer stuff, and putting all this data together, and just overall general technology. And now they have outdated the old school racer. He's worthless to NASCAR now, whenever he used to be what built it. Now it's all the young guys who do not have to have any driving talent at all compared to what guys like Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt had.
Right.
And I just see it going, fishing seems to be going in the same direction. We're hitting this giant technological boom right now.
So you think your theory is that fishing is going to become so much of a video game that it's the video gamers that are going to be good at it, not the fishermen?
I'm going to say that you don't have to be. You're not going to have to be the greatest fisherman anymore, like the guys were back in the day, to be successful in the tournament world. You're just going to have the right people and the right technology around you, and if that's what you want to do whenever you grow up, as long as you can put the pieces together, I think you can do it. I see that in where NASCAR is today. Like they had to put the limits on the technology to where each team, all right, this is all you can use, this is all you can do, and the driver, aka the bass fisherman, he doesn't have that much to do with it anymore today. And I kind of sitting here today, I realize bass fishing now is kind of where NASCAR was 15 years ago. The
Well-
old school fisherman is.
Well, let's talk about, Andrew. What are the limits? I mean, we've sort of danced around. I mean, what, in your opinion, what are the limits? What's going too far? Is it when you put on the artificial intelligence goggles, is and you're no longer looking at the water? What is, maybe that's not the best example, but I mean, what is too far for you?
I mean, honestly, I think the fact that we have 8 drafts on our boat and there's anglers out there that have 5 and 6 transducers mounted on their boat aimed in literally every single direction. I thought it was very fitting, and I want to preface this: I have absolutely nothing against Koyo that won Toledo Bend, but he literally has the most transducers on his boat of any Elite Series angler, and he's the one that won the very first event. And I thought it was like, man, it's really fitting that like the one person that has the most. Now, is that correlation significant? I guess so. I mean, maybe he's not going to be able to look at all of those screens at once to figure out where a fish is. I mean, I understand why he has them. Like when he's idling around, he can look out. It's almost like a live side imaging look of everything in the water column. Whereas side imaging that we used to have, you could only see the bottom and maybe fish that were near it. So it just gives you a higher definition look of what's around you. But I do believe that there has to be a limit on transducers, maybe like one per boat as far as live transducers go. And then you're allowed to have like one additional transducer for obviously like your normal 2D and things like that. But only one live transducer. And I think that they need to go into an inch method on the amount of screens. So instead of saying you are allowed 4 depth finders, that's all you're allowed, 4 graphs. Well, of course, there's always, just like everything in life, there's going to be somebody that says, well, if I'm allowed 4, I'm going to have 4 24 inchers. And does that fix this? Is that a solution? Absolutely not. So they're going to have to go one step further and say, okay, well, we're going to have 4, you're allowed 48 inches total on your boat of electronic devices. So if I have 48 inches, I can put, 24 up front and 24 in the back. Or I can put, 16 on the front and 32 in the back, and balance it that way. And so it gives the angler an idea of how they rig their boat, but also doesn't overwhelm it to the point, just like the other gentleman was talking about, like how it was in NASCAR. They had to start limiting the tech, and he's 100% right. The older angler, dude, these guys are really good friends of mine, but like Greg Hackney's,
Yep.
the Jason Christie's, the Gerald Swindles. I hate to say it. Now, Christie's a different animal because Christie actually won the Classic using live scope.
Right.
Okay. I mean, he caught vast majority of his fish using live scope, and then supplemented with the jig and all the other stuff. Those other guys, if they don't adapt in this day and age, they're going to become obsolete. They're going to become people who are forgotten about. And I hate to say that, but that's just where we're at currently. If nothing changes, if no rules change, and if they don't adapt, that's where we're at.
If nothing changes, you're going to wind up in, I'm just going to throw a number out there, let's say 15 years, with this artificial intelligence and other stuff that you speak about.
Yep.
Everyone's going to know this part of the lake is where all the fish are at. This is where it's going to be one at, and everybody's going to be sitting right
Before
there
they even
going out
fish.
there.
Why even? Why honestly? Why even fish it though? Like, I mean, your boat can go, your
Yeah.
boat, your rods, everything can go. You don't have to get beat up. You don't have to be in the wind. It can all be virtual.
Just send it.
virtual.
It's headed in that direction.
I think it'll be less than 15, Lucas.
Yeah, I think it'll be in the next 4.
Yeah,
to be
next
honest.
4 or 5
Um,
years. It's moving so
yeah.
quick. Virtual reality has come so far. Like all the teenagers nowadays, that's what they all got for Christmas is like these really high-tech virtual reality things. And I watched our neighbor's kid the other day, and it is wild. This new virtual reality tech. You could easily figure out how to tie. Well, I couldn't easily figure it out, but somebody could easily figure out how to tie virtual reality into fishing. And
Yeah.
and
Right,
it's
so-
and it's over. You don't, like you said, it's a video game. Then it's not a reality.
That's what NASCAR is today.
Yeah.
I promise you.
Andrew, is your
But-
son big into fishing?
He enjoys. He's a big sports nut.
He's
I mean,
sports.
he likes
Yeah,
to
I
play,
know. He's all
he
about
likes to play
sports.
football, run track, baseball, basketball, etc. But, I mean, he likes to play video games, and so I think he'd fit really well into this right now. But
Yeah, exactly.
he, the unfortunate thing is so I'm probably a different parent than some. As an angler, as somebody that fishes a lot, I do not push my son to go fishing hardly ever. I mean, almost never.
Yep.
And the only reason I don't is because for a couple of reasons. A, I'm not going to introduce something to him unless he wants to be introduced to it. Now, if he knows that I fish, and if he says, Daddy, I want to go fishing today, I will jump through every hoop I can to go fishing with him that day. No questions asked. But in the same token, I also know how easy it is to get burnt out on something. And so when it comes to sports, if he says, hey, I don't want to play this year, I'm like, okay, not a problem. And we won't play that. And so I'm just trying my best at this point not to burn him out on anything. I think he really enjoys fishing. He loves actually likes catching crappie more than anything because they thump so hard when they bite.
Yep.
And so, especially a crappie jig. So I'd much rather take him crappie fishing than anything. But over the last 3 weeks, he's really gotten kind of back into it. We've gone fishing 3 or 4 times. So it's nice to see him want to go. He gets so disappointed though when he doesn't catch one.
Oh, mine's
But
the
I've been
same
there,
way.
Yeah,
I
I mean, I'm like, buddy, there's been days that I never catch a fish, and I fish all day. So
Yep.
I get it.
Yep, that's just part of the game, man. I wish it happened. The way they see it on TV. TV does make it look so good when we get these shows done correctly. As far as Let's Fish TV, let's talk about it. So our new season starts when, and where can people find it?
It starts this coming week. It'll be on Thursday, Valley Sports Southwest Southeast. We won't hit Sportsman's until April.
Okay.
And we won't hit Valley Sports Florida until April. So right now, it'll be Valley Sports Southwest and Southeast will be the best places to find it. And obviously, every time we post an episode, the following week we'll actually post it to YouTube. So if you missed the episode, we'll have it there. But we have so many re-airs every single week. So we try to make sure that everybody gets a chance to watch it, obviously. It is going to be a good year. I'm really, really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Actually, the very first episode of the year is with my son. We went and shot one on a little lake in East Texas. Had a lot of fun. We didn't really catch him that great, but I was just happy to spend some time with him, and that's what it's all about for me. I mean,
Amen.
Like you talk about juggling things. And being a busy person, I do have Let's Fish TV. I have my YouTube channel. I'm also the president of our football board for youth football. I coach his basketball team. I coach his baseball team. I coach his track team. And
Wow.
And so, there's a lot. I have a lot of stokes in the fire, but at the end of the day, I'd give it all up just to spend more time with him. So, he is the inspiration when it comes to every single decision I make and everything I do. So
That is awesome, my friend. That is awesome. Well, Tony Carter's in here now, and Tony, I know you've got to have some kind of forward. Tony is a bass fanatic. He's an incredible bass fisherman as well, but he is a fanatic and watches. I mean, he introduced me to Slick. He introduced me to half the what's the other one we watched? Low Budget. Low Budget's awesome.
Luke Duncan.
Luke Duncan.
Luke
Is awesome,
Luke
dude.
Clunkin is
Luke Clunkin.
Man calls him.
Man, they are awesome. But Tony is an avid studier of bass fishing, and he's old school. Don't let him. I mean, he is old school. He's got one graph. It's a 6-inch unit on his boat. No crazy electronics, and he can outfish about everybody around here. We fish the tidal waters here, along the coast. And then I've got another buddy, Senator, had to go to a meeting. So I've got Captain Fred Rourke here, who's a local guide and one of our hosts on the radio show as well, sitting in with us. Y'all have any questions for Andrew? Anybody?
Yeah, Tony.
Come on, Tony. And by the way, Andrew, guess what? JT,
What's that?
JT just became the Phoenix Big Bass leader for the day. 9-7?
9-13.
9-13.
And lost another one.
Hey,
Right?
and by the way, I'm not supposed to know this, but he lost an 11-plus pounder this morning. I texted Miss Angela at about 6:45 this morning. I said I had an epiphany. JT's going to the scales with 2 fish today. And doggone it, he lost to 11. But he does have one that's going to the scales. So he's bringing one. But anyway, they've been keeping me up to date on how it's going. And I swear, I'm addicted. We love watching live bass. We love watching bass live. We do. And you mentioned NPFL. I'll tell you, I think that thing is growing. The momentum's picking up, and it's fun to see all the cool names that are going over there. When's Andrew Upshaw going over there?
Honestly, I thought about going last year. I just don't foresee it happening. I mean, it may or may not. I don't want to say that it absolutely won't. To be honest, my platform and how everything works.
Yep.
As much as I don't want to be fishing 9 events in a year, what 9 events allows me to do is to go film a lot of TV shows without having to go make a bunch of separate trips.
Yep.
So that's a really big deal for what I do. So I mean, like for instance, on this trip to Santee, I'm going to film 5 episodes of Let's Fish TV. So every single trip I shoot 2 to 5 shows. So I can get a lot of work done, and that's a really big deal for me. And so if I'm only doing 6 MPFL events over the course of a 10-month time frame, that kind of throws a wrench in my filming days. And then I have to take even more special trips to go film, and I don't like that. I like to be able to do everything at once because I'm just a crazy person.
No, you're smart. You're smart. And the cool thing is there might be 6 shows filmed at Santee or filmed next week in South Carolina for Let's Fish TV. Would you count mine in and your 5? Well, no, you're going to Georgia too.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm going to Georgia as well. I actually have the cool thing is right now as we speak this weekend I've got 4 shows being shot. Let's see, what is today? Friday?
Yep.
So starting Saturday and Sunday, I'll have 4 episodes being filmed in those 2 days. So in the course of 1 week, we're going to have 10 episodes of Let's Fish shot.
Yep.
So it's pretty crazy when you start putting pen to pad. But, that's the other thing that I do. I mean, I don't just obviously host Let's Fish. I have some guest hosts because, quite honestly, shooting 39 episodes would be absolutely ludicrous.
Yep.
So I do have guest hosts to shoot like Inglis and some others. So also managing those guys to make sure they're on schedule on top of me being on schedule is somewhat complicated sometimes.
I know, man.
We get it done.
Hey, listen, and I want to go ahead and tell you this, that I know your schedule, and if you look at Barry 3 years ago and you and me last year, our relationships, Barry would have told you, don't be patient with English. You're gonna have to be patient with him when he gets on him getting a show. Blah blah blah. But I'm gonna tell you, I have so much respect for you and your schedule with what you do. My objective is that maybe once in a blue moon, Garrett has to reach out to me, but I don't ever want you to have to reach out to me except to say, man, great show. That's all I want. I don't want you to have to say, hey, man, when you going to get that show? Because
you're my easy one. I have some that I have to push a little bit, but that's just part of it, and that's okay. I mean, because when you're dealing with personalities, I've got some that are professional anglers. I've got some that are, guides and things like that. And they have busy lives too. And, NF, they're doing me a favor. They're also getting paid for that favor.
Yes.
But they're still doing me a favor nonetheless. So I have to be really nice about reminding. I can't be like, hey, what's your problem?
I'm going to tell you what. Hey, I'll tell you one thing. Stay out of print, okay? Do not get into print because you want to talk about something that's difficult. You try to get a bunch of writers to get their articles in on time, and let me tell you, it's a different ball game.
Guilty.
Yeah, you're guilty. So is this one to the right of me.
Guilty as charged,
I'm
baby.
guilty too. But
Hey,
I want to tell you this much. Thank you so much for keeping me on board. And Tony will tell you that last year when I heard you were taking over, how nervous was I? I was nervous. And I'm just going to tell you, listen, I'm a little old fish in a big old sea, okay? I mean, we're sitting here in a storage unit, very nice storage unit, doing this. But I am a very little fish in a big, big sea. I don't have 1 million followers. I don't. But I'm genuine, and people that have watched my TV show in the past know I am me. I love sharing what I do on the water. I love helping, people enjoy the water more through whether I give them tips, advice, or whatever. But for me to be involved in your show is huge for me and my family, and I want to thank you so much for including me.
Absolutely. I couldn't think of a better person to have on the South Carolina report. And ultimately, when it's all said and done, it's a team that makes all this work. I mean, I'm just a cog in the wheel of everything that makes everything successful at Let's Fish, from Garrett to Jamie to all my reporters, everybody, Julie Dobbs, everybody that's behind the scenes that makes this work. Whether or not I'm a big cog in the wheel is irrelevant in the fact of we all have a job to do. We all do it to the best of our abilities, and that's all I care about is we have fun in the process and we get our job done. Because at the end of the day, the better we are, the better we work together, the more successful the product is for everybody, and they get a really good show out of it. So
Absolutely.
I really do appreciate everything that you do and everything. And also having me on today, it's been a
dude,
good time.
Listen, I've watched all these podcasts that you do, and I've been like, you and I both know Barry was not big on this kind of stuff. And so I invited him. We had Ted Nugent. We have Jim Shockey. I mean, we've had some big names in the world of outdoors. And he would never do it. And I was like, you and I talked on the phone yesterday, and I feel like we vibe really good. And I was like, woke up this morning, I said, man, I want Andrew on. And I text you at like 5:45 your time, not even thinking about it, but texted you at 5:45, and I'm super stoked that you joined us today. And hey, as far as the show goes this year, for those that have watched it religiously every year, I know there was some small changes last year. Any big changes this year? Things coming out of the show? Anything for anybody to expect? Obviously, always those local reports that I think make the show what it is. No offense to you, no offense to me, but I do think that people love seeing reports. And I'm going to tell you real quick something that I'm doing in mine. But any other big changes in the show as far as the format?
There is actually one big change in the show this year.
Uh-oh.
It was a decision that Garrett and I made together. We talked about it in depth, and he gave me his reasons. I gave him my reasons, and we actually got rid of the Ask the Pro segment of the show, solely because to give more time to add obviously a little bit more fishing in, but B, to give a little bit more detail at the end of the show to be able to talk about baits, lures and rods and reels, and it really give an in-depth breakdown of what happened during the day, why you did what you did, and stuff like that. And to me, that is a really key element that I felt like we were having to rush through most
Yep.
of the time. And I really want that to be a big part of the show. And don't get me wrong, I love the pros. I love that they're able to give their input and answer questions and things like that. But at the end of the day, from a learning aspect, I really believe the more we can sit down and have a conversation, and that's basically what it is when it's all said and done, is a conversation with the viewer about what we did and why we did it is more important than, a generic question with a generic answer.
It
Well, again, no offense.
absolutely is. Yeah, you need to how you did it is important to the people that are going to watch you.
Yep.
They don't want to see you just catch fish. It's like, how did you do that?
Yeah, I've done a lot of shows with Fred, and Fred is one that's awesome. And Fred is one of our co-hosts on the radio show, and he is one that if you ask a question or you tell somebody about something you did, he is the one that asks the great question that he knows the listeners want to hear. And that's what people want when they watch your show. They're going to be entertained anyway. You're fishing somewhere that most people can fish and can enjoy. But for them to pick up that tip on how you rigged your bait up, maybe you didn't, maybe you're starting to, let's talk about it. Now, something I learned last week. So people are starting to hide their lead or put their lead inside their bait because it shows up better on the forward-facing sonar. I didn't know that.
Yeah, people want to duplicate what they see on the show.
Yeah.
How did you do that? How did you achieve that on the show? And they want to duplicate that in their own fishing life. And I think you have an obligation to do that.
Fred
Absolutely.
is really, really, really good at getting information out of people.
Yep.
But you, Andrew, from a bass fishing side of the world, a tournament fishing of the world, there's some tips and secrets that you don't want to give out. Fred's really good at digging those little nuggets out of the cracks. And I'm sitting there going, Fred, please, don't ask me. just stop. I don't want to tell you what size swivel I was using on this spinner bait.
But see, that is actually something that, and I get in some trouble from time to time, but that is something that I do from the beginning. So if I start breaking something down and I start telling, I probably tell too much. But at the end of the day, like the way I break it down, whether or not people like it or not, especially on the show, I'm going to get millions of views, but at the end of the day, I'm going to still be able to go out there and do my job and catch fish. But I want everybody else to catch fish too. Like, why should I be so selfish to say, like, well, they don't deserve to go catch them too? Now, granted, did they figure out this tip? Well, heck, I probably didn't figure out that tip. I probably watched it on YouTube or saw people do it.
Somebody admitting the truth.
Andrew,
Yeah, that's just where we're at.
I found that any detail that you can share with people about fishing, about techniques or what you're using or how you're doing it, I never saw that as a negative. It's always come back as a positive thing, and I don't know that you'll ever see that it'll come back to you in a negative way. I just don't believe that. It'll always be good.
Oh, yeah. I don't think so either. But I want my viewer to trust me. I don't want them to think it's an infomercial or something that, like when I say I use a Strike King Thunder Cricket, I have a huge box of Strike King Thunder Crickets in my boat that I'm going to use next week.
What color?
It's green pumpkin.
There you go.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying I'm using a Thunder Cricket then going using a jackhammer.
Right.
I'm using a Thunder Cricket because that's what I believe is the best. Now, whether or not it's the best or not, that's what I believe in. That's what I use. And I have reasons. Like, and not to get off on a tangent, but like when it comes to Thunder Cricket and a jackhammer has a great hook. It has a great blade. And it may be the best well-built chatterbait that there is, bar none. But as a tournament angler that goes out there day in and day out, if I know that 90% of my competition is using a jackhammer, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use something that's different, that's going to sound different, that's going to vibrate different. And I can go behind almost every single angler that's throwing a vibrating jig with a Thunder Cricket, and I'll catch more than they will because those fish get conditioned to that same sound, that same vibration all the time.
Yep.
The Thunder Cricket has a great hook. It has a great blade. It has a good skirt. Not a great skirt. It's not hand-tied or anything like that. It's just got a good skirt. But the fact is, is I can go behind people and catch fish because I'm doing something just a little bit different. And
100%.
and that's what it's all about.
You
So I mean,
you're catching educated fish.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and I can trigger them. I can go behind. I did it at Okeechobee the other day. There was an area that I was fishing, and a lot of guys were using jackhammers. And I went through there, and they were like, "What the heck are you doing?" I said, "I'm just throwing chatterbait." I wasn't going to tell them I was throwing the thunder cricket, but I was smoking them on the thunder cricket. And they're throwing the same color as they were, but it didn't matter. I mean, it was more the sound, the vibration. Those fish were so used to that sound. When mine came through, my cricket came through there, they're like, "Oh my gosh, what's that?" And they eat it.
Yep.
So, but I like to go back to the topic. Like, I just want the viewer, when they listen to me, they know I'm not blowing smoke up their butt. They know I'm telling them the truth, and they can believe if I say, "Hey, the sky's red today," they say, "You know what? It is red today," because they know I'm not going to lie to them. And if it's red, we got some problems. But you know what I'm saying?
Well, in this technology world that we live in, it since live came out, it's you can't keep any secrets anymore. I mean, it's everybody has a visual of what you're doing and how you're doing and what you're throwing. So it's really hard to get up there and promote a lure that's not tied on your rod because people will call you out on it and they will see through the bull real fast.
Well, integrity is important.
It's so funny. So like, obviously I'm gonna go and tell you there was a bunch of my competitors and myself that watched a lot of the live from Santee last week for the Bass Pro Tour, just to kind of get an idea of what was going on and all that stuff. Well, I watched a lot of the live.
None of them was throwing a red chatterbait, was they? No.
No, I know. You know what I'm saying? But it was so fascinating when I'm watching them, and I can ID a bait. As small as it may be, I can ID most every bait out there. Like, I've just done it enough. I've been here enough. I've seen most every bait out there. And when they say, "Well, no, I was using this bait in the top 10 thing," and it's like, "This is what I was using," I'm like, "But were you though?" Because like, I was watching live and you weren't using that. You caught them all on this, and you're saying you caught them all on that, but I was watching and you didn't catch them on that.
Exactly.
And it's like, you can't lie. Like, what are you doing?
Well,
like,
Andrew, I used to fish a lot of king mackerel tournaments. There's one boat in particular that before they ran back in, they would tie chartreuse skirts on every rod they had. But day to day when they fished, they never used skirts. So it was the same thing as you're talking about there. Is trying to throw people a curve, but that doesn't always work.
Yeah, I think it's kind of silly. Live has definitely changed the way we look at things. And whether good or bad, it's definitely made it more difficult. But I still think at the end of the day, there's guys like Jacob Wheeler and some others that have some tricks up their sleeves that they are not sharing and aren't getting captured on live. And obviously because they're winning too much. And
money.
So they've got some things figured out.
And that's okay.
So,
that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, so there's still a way to keep secrets and not everybody realize what you're doing.
Right.
But we are getting to an age of technology that really, really, really hard to hide secret stuff anymore.
Well, you need to get your boys out here and we get you on some salt water and I'll tell you all my secrets.
Oh, heck yeah. I'm all about it, man.
Bring old Castledine with you. We need to get him out of Texas for a little while and get him into some salt water and get him to do something different for a change.
Give him some redfish
He
secrets.
actually, he does like some redfish now. That's one thing that a lot of people don't realize is like Coleman, when he was fishing, his favorite place in the world was Corpus Christi, Matagorda down in South Texas, trout fishing, red fishing.
Yeah.
And I know Castledine goes once or twice a year down to South Louisiana catching big reds, using like a hybrid hunter and things like that. So, we've always, all of us have really saltwater fished quite a bit. Well, a lot more than we ever actually televise. It's just, I guess I do on Let's Fish, but we'd always go saltwater fishing because we had the availability there right there in Texas. So, he would 100% love to do it. I know he would.
Andrew, we pick on Tony that fresh water's for drinking and salt water's for fishing.
Yeah,
See, and we actually say the opposite. We say that freshwater is for
hey,
fishing. So, you know.
any idiot can catch a fish in the freshwater.
Yeah, right.
Man, I catch fish that'll eat your live well. I catch one fish that'll eat your bag of fish.
I agree with that. You know, but the very first time that I shot a show saltwater fishing, I actually went down to Panama and shot a show with Larry Dahlberg, A Hunt for Big Fish.
Oh, heck yeah.
And I shot a show with him, and we were catching. I caught a big marlin that day. It was like a 700-pounder. And then we had some cabera snapper, and we were going after rooster fish with topwaters. And we never actually caught a rooster. We hooked up a couple, but we just never landed one. But I was so, don't get me wrong, like reeling in that marlin was awesome. But it took so long because we didn't have, it was all standing gear. We were using a standing rod, no seat, nothing, nothing like that.
You were working for it.
I was working for it. I think it took about an hour and 20 minutes to land that fish. And by the time it was done, I was like, I'm pretty much done for the day. Like,
Yeah, you are.
There's no part of me that wants to do anything else the rest of this day. And so, yeah, you catch one that could eat every fish of mine, but golly,
Yeah.
I'm going to have a whole heck of a lot of fun for
Hey,
a lot longer.
I agree with you, and Tony will tell you. Listen. There's two guys sitting in this room that know how addicted I was to bass fishing, at least in the last 6 years, and I did. It was bad. Lucas and I were fishing tournaments. Tony and I were fishing tournaments. Everything we could. But I'll say this much: a bass fisherman works as hard as anybody else at catching fish. There's
Absolutely.
no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. And I've heard, obviously with the forward-facing sonar, the amount of casts have reduced tremendously. Talking about the calories that used to burn, that the anglers used to burn on the bow of the boat, versus now where these guys are not casting until they see a fish.
I tell you what forward-facing sonar has done, and I don't know the numbers on it, but I'd like to. But I promise you, without any question in my mind, the sales of spinning rods and spinning reels has had to
Gone
at
up.
least quadruple in the last 2 years.
Mr. Luz can tell you right there, probably.
Oh no, it's ridiculous. I'm not gonna lie. Like they have significantly increased. But I'll give you a stat for you real quick. That should show you just how powerful forward-facing sonar is. As it sits right now on the bass track that they have, first, third, fifth, and sixth are all rookies on the Bassmaster Elite Series
Wow.
right now.
But they knew technology, though. They're
Exactly.
the masters of technology.
So, like, they're the masters of technology, and they're kicking booty.
Yeah,
And then you still have the other rookies. One's in 21st, and he only has 4 fish, and that's JT with 23 pounds. If he catches another 6 or 7 pounder, he's going to move up in the top 10. So actually, he doesn't even need that. He only needs like a 5 pounder to move in. So
Well,
I mean,
I haven't looked. Where's Milliken sitting at this morning?
Well, but you got somebody like Tony that doesn't have that gear, but Tony can take you to the fish, and he's gonna do the casting. But you got to respect the older guys that actually could get it done without their equipment. I mean, that's pretty amazing. It's the work they put in to be able to have that much knowledge about it.
no doubt. And the only unfortunate thing is I've been watching, and today or yesterday there was quite a few guys in the top 10, top 20, top 30 that were sight fishing and doing other things. Today is not that case. It almost seems like most of the fish that they were on beds didn't replenish, and you're seeing those guys kind of fall out, and the forward-facing sonar guys really rise to the top. I mean, Patrick Walters had a subpar day with 18 pounds,
Yep.
and he's got 32 today. And the same could be said like Jordan Lee. He's got 30, almost 33 today. These guys I just don't think traditional fishing and multiple day events and withstand the power of forward-facing sonar.
It
It
won't.
just can't.
Oh
It
no,
won't.
You know?
no, it will never, ever, ever. You'll never see it go back to that. It's
No.
come too far, and it's amazing to watch some of these guys, and it is. And I'm not a big forward facing guy as far as watching it on TV. But now that they've integrated where they put the screen up and they let you see the screen and
Yep,
see
I'm
how
loving that.
the fish are reacting to the lures and stuff like that, where it's engaging the audience more, I think has helped a ton. And
The fish that are in deeper water, though, is what I'm seeing is changing it. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
We're orienting on the beds
the,
and
the
the bank.
1090 theory is changing. The 10% of fish and or the 90% of the fish and 10% of the water is changing because they've never just been in 10% of the water.
Well, now you can go off the bank and locate these bigger fish out there. That's what I'm seeing. That's pretty amazing. Is that they would have never made a cast of that, but now they're working it.
the one thing that it is 100% truly done is let us know that everything we thought about fishing, we was wrong.
Absolutely.
we were
Yeah.
wrong.
Well, there was an old timer told me one time if you throw into that bank, and I've always caught fish there, and it's not happening, turn 180 degrees.
So the other way.
And find out how
That's
many
what Tony
people.
told me.
Yeah, and try to.
Yep.
And try to make yourself do that. It's almost impossible. But if you had forward looking, guess what? You can vent. Now
Well,
you're gonna work
Well,
it.
that's me with a crankbait. I'm not fishing the heel 90% of the time. I'm fishing where your boat's sitting at,
Right.
where you're trying to throw to the heel. I'm that guy that loves to get off in deeper water and
And you figured that out without forward facing.
No. My depth finder was a crankbait my whole life. Hey, guess what?
I feel like I spoke it into existence. JT just caught a 6.6 and moved to 7th with
Wow.
29.6. Yeah. So
Wow.
you're
Hey,
welcome. You're welcome, JT. I got you hooked up there. Buddy.
hey, listen. Hey, real
Awesome.
quick. I wanted to ask you one thing. You and I spoke yesterday, and I'm going to ask you right now on the air while we're recording. But I want to ask you if you sat down with JT and you could give him some advice and some tips right now with not the fishing side of it. You and I both know that's not what it's about. But what would be some tips that you would give him?
There's a couple tips I would give any, and I'm not. Just
I'm
gonna
saying
speak
to any and
JT.
all of the new guys.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
where
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going with this. Yes.
First off, you gotta build your social presence. It's the old theory that I like to go based off of is, everybody's like, well, I'm gonna next week I'm gonna start a YouTube channel, or next month I've really got this, and when you should have started was yesterday.
Yep.
And anytime you sit there and say, well, I'm gonna do it next week or next year or 2 years, like you're already so far behind. You need to just go ahead and bite the bullet and do it, regardless if you're in the last or whatever, or like you have no views or whatever it may be. Brian Latimer actually talked to me about it before, and he's like, Andrew, you got to stop worrying about how many views you get. You just got to keep posting, keep putting out good content, and eventually people are going to find you. And he's right.
Yep.
He said, even whenever you get really successful, you're going to have days where they just suck. The video sucks. And you might think it's the best video you've ever put out. And you might put out a video that you think is the worst video you ever put out, and you get 40,000 views on it.
Yep.
So my biggest advice to any of these younger anglers is get a social media presence, work harder than everybody else that's out there, and more importantly than anything, put your blinders on. Right now, there's a lot of guys that don't like forward-facing sonar. They're going to treat you a lot different. They don't think you belong there, don't deserve to be there. And if anything, they're just mad because you're kicking their butt. And the reality is, you don't know as much about fishing as they do. And you need to understand that you definitely don't. At the end of the day, you need to keep doing your job, and that is go out there and figure out your best way to catch 5 fish and go win some tournaments.
Amen. Wow, that's some good advice, brother.
Yep.
That is some great advice.
Well, soon as you think you know it all, you will be humbled. I'll testify to that.
That's exactly what.
No doubt about that.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what forward-facing sonar did to us. It humbled all of us. It made us all look like we was going backwards. When we really figured out what the fish was doing and where the fish was at, yeah, we all look like a bunch of monkeys. I mean, it's just that simple.
Well, you might have.
I do think there's certain theories out there that were more solidified with forward-facing sonar, but there was definitely a lot of patterns and things that were definitely people were like, man, you didn't know what the heck you were talking about. But that's what theory is,
Right.
You know, I mean, you can only build based off of the information that you have,
Yep.
and so. You know, I mean, that's for anything. So the more information you get, I think is a good thing. I mean, you need to have the most information to make a good decision, no matter what it is for fishing or life in general. So I think all forward-facing sonar has done at this point is, create an enormous amount of divide in the angling community, but also give us information, which is exactly what we need.
Well, I don't see the technology going anywhere. So get over it.
No, these companies are putting way too much money up.
That's the
thing.
It is the future, and I mean, who knows? There may be a GPS guided chatterbait to throw to whatever's on your screen. And we laugh, but that's how.
I hope that doesn't.
I know, man.
Exist.
Hey, hang on. 2 years ago, Livingston Lures came out. God, I hate giving them a plug, but anyway, Livingston Lures came out with the shrimp that would.
That's been more than 2 years.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. The shrimp that would connect Wi-Fi to my phone. Like, really? Come on, people.
Hey, it's coming.
Whatever.
It's coming.
Listen, Andrew.
I mean, yeah. The more we fight technology, the more it slaps us in the face.
You better embrace it.
Hey, man, listen, I can't appreciate you enough for taking the time this morning. And I know you got a lot of getting ready to do to head out east and come see us. And, man, we'll be pulling for you first and foremost hard next week at Santee. There's some big y'all gonna put some big bags on the scales.
Andrew, do you happen to know what the final number was on number of fish over 6 pounds that was caught on Santee Cooper last week?
I want to say it was in the 80s.
Well,
if I remember correctly.
It was over that. It was at 90.
Or was it more?
94, 96.
Okay.
The last I heard.
I remember JT talking about it, and at that point of the episode, it was like at 80 something. And I didn't watch every single thing, but yeah, I mean, you know what's really crazy though? And I'm not trying to say it's not I know how historic Santee is and how great it is. Did y'all see the numbers at Fork yesterday? Like, truly,
yes.
I mean, I don't think people understand. They had, I want to say it was like 13 fish over 8 pounds.
8 pounds.
Yesterday.
That's amazing.
And last year alone, they had 2 fish over 8 the whole season.
Yep.
And like 13 over 8. Like, I understand over 6. And like, dude, if I catch 5 6-pounders at Santee, I'm gonna be high-fiving every single person that walks by. I don't even care. But 13 8s, and I don't know. I think they had like 2 or 3 over 10 yesterday. Like, I mean, the numbers were unbelievable. And they actually had a comparison up against Lake Fork whenever it was going through its heyday when they were winning. And I screenshot it. The biggest bag of the event for Falcon was 42. In comparison to Lake Fork yesterday was 39.
39. Yep.
Yep. The big bass at Falcon was a 13-2, whereas the big bass yesterday, after just one day, was a 10-9.
Yep.
They had 18 total 30-pound bags on day one at Falcon.
Yep.
Whereas they had 14 at Fort. 80 20-pound bags and 69 20-pound bags. I say that to say this. Can you freaking imagine if they had forward-facing sonar at Falcon that year?
No.
What the bags would have been.
Man.
It would have been astronomical. Like, they're comparing it, and they need to put an asterisk on it, because if they actually if they had the tech, it's almost like Jordan and LeBron.
Yep.
Like, comparison-wise. Like, it was
like Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. Yep.
Absolutely. Like, you can't compare the clubs or anything. Like, it would be astronomical weights had they had it with the level of talent and technology talent that they have right now. I don't even know what it would have been. Like I would dare to say 100 bags over 20, or like I can't say 190. Let's say 90. So let's say 10 people screwed up,
Yeah.
but 90 bags over 20 because I fished falcon during that time when it was unbelievable, and I'd never seen the lake in my life, and I went and caught 31 pounds and had a 9-pounder that day.
Nice.
Good Lord.
I mean, like,
is that
I
in
went out there with
Texas?
a
Was that
buddy.
in Texas?
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with it. That's why I'm asking. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I finished 30th place in that tournament. It was a Bass Champs tournament. I finished 30th place with 30 pounds.
Wow.
I ain't never
that's
seen
a
nothing
slap
in
in the
my life
face.
like that.
If you think that
Yeah.
won't humble you real quick.
Yeah.
Dude.
I went in, I was like, dude, we got 30. We're just going to be rocking. And somebody came in with like 43 that day, and I was like, what?
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about him. We got the last check. The last check.
Oh, well, listen, man, we're good. I'm looking forward to finally getting face to face to meet you. I got some other stuff in the works, so hopefully on Monday at some point in time after I get my show done and you're off the water, maybe we're able to meet up down there. But we are going to be following you and pulling hard for you next week, and we can't wait for another season of Let's Fish TV. And we're going to get together again sometime in the next couple months as we move forward with this tournament idea that we have for Georgetown. And I definitely want to pull you in because we want your input. I think you'll add a lot to help us out with how we're going to organize it. And we don't have enough time to go into that further. But Stephen did text me, wanted to tell you thank you. It was a pleasure being on with you, and that the invitation for you to come diving with him is genuine. He's got a new Freeman Boat Works that'll be ready here in about a month or two. So
those Freemans are nice.
Yeah, they are.
Freemans are really nice.
Yep. So you get to ride in style, brother. So maybe that'll be a reason for you to come out here. But man, it's been a pleasure. Safest of trips to you, and man, we'll get together soon. Okay, brother.
Thank you guys, and I appreciate being on. I'll talk to y'all soon.
All right, Andrew. Take care, buddy. All right, man. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for sitting in. And Lucas, I know you probably had a lot more questions to ask, didn't you?
No,
Be honest.
I could have gone a lot deeper into where we were going there for a little while. Talking about so like the amount of inches you're allowed on your boat.
I thought that was a pretty cool.
Right, but so now you're going to have to get to the tournament a few days early, and you're going to have to send your boat through technical inspection.
Yeah.
I mean, you're only allowed one sonar on the boat. It's just like any other sport. People are going to try to get an edge, and there's plenty of people out there that are willing to go in the gray area, as you would say.
Yep.
And in a few years, you're going to have to pull your boat into technical inspection before a BASS tournament.
That's right.
They're going to have a template.
Well, listen, hey, it's been a great time. Want to thank Tony, Fred, Lucas, the senator. And we're going to switch mics. We're going to switch up here. We're going to get out of here. And y'all don't forget about Captain Spalloni's report. It's been in hibernation for the winter, but she's coming back. And don't forget Southern Anglers Radio Show every Saturday morning from 8 to 10. Tomorrow we'll be hanging out with George Poveromo at this saltwater seminar series at Barefoot Resort. But catch us all at TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. You can check out everything that we offer. And, again, it's been a great episode. And thank Andrew Upshaw, Let's Fish TV, for joining us. We'll be back next week. Remember, fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it all right here on Trilogy Outdoors. Hey, y'all, Captain E here with Southern Anglers Radio Show. And I'll tell you what, I am super excited to be down in the Pond Road Storage in Merle's Inlet. I'm located within moments of either going to the river or going to put in the inlet. I'm keeping that Key West 250 Bay Reef indoors, and it is staying in great shape. I only have to wash the boat once now, and that's when I put it up and not before I take it to go fishing. But you can get incredible options here. 20-foot wide, 50-foot deep with 14-foot roll-up doors, a most state-of-the-art security system to keep you that peace of mind on all your products that you may keep in these storage buildings. You've got climate-controlled or non-climate controlled outdoor storage for trailers, RVs, and such. You can't go wrong. 843-855-7375. Give Chris Collins a good call down there. We can't wait. We love broadcasting down here inside the storage building. And you need to come down here and check it out too. Come down, Pond Road Storage, right here in Merle's Inlet. Freeman Boat Works and Trilogy Outdoors are proud to announce the addition of Freeman Boat Works to our family of incredible partners. Billy Freeman and his team at Freeman Boat Works epitomize the American dream. From building the first boat in Billy's backyard to a 150,000 square foot state-of-the-art manufacturing plant over the past 15 years, they are building one of the most sought-after boats in the U.S. and beyond. These incredible fishing platforms are built in South Carolina and are second to none in stability, speed, and performance overall. These catamaran designs are engineered not only to get you to the fish fast, but comfortably too. Years of refining designs and pioneering the modern performance fishing catamaran is why Freeman Boat Works is the #1 choice for some of the biggest names in the fishing industry. If it's long runs in the Gulf or the Carolinas, or days you can go fishing in South Florida when most center consoles stay at the dock, Freeman Boat Works is at the forefront in all categories. For more information on Freeman Boat Works and their 6 available models, visit www.freemanboatworks.com. Redefine your expectations.
Trilogy Outdoors Podcast is a product of Trilogy Outdoors Media. All views and opinions of our hosts and guests are not necessarily those of our sponsors. Trilogy Outdoors is produced and edited by Trilogy Outdoors Media. Be sure to follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also don't forget our other brands, Southern English Radio Show and Walk 'Em All Outdoor Magazine. To find more information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. And remember, if it's anything dealing with fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors.